sant yàlla.
looy xaar utal Wave nga scan nga fay te nag doo ci yokku dara.
Jah Oil, the company, have filling stations across the country, and our rates are relatively cheaper than anyone else across the country. Jah Oil is the biggest producer and distributor of cement in the country with the most competitive prices in the market.
In the Gambia, we all move to different paces. Time is money, convenience is power, and now both are in your hands. No more long lines, no more late payments, no more missed chances. Not anymore. Because now the Gambia has its own super app, Zap. One app, one tap, endless convenience. Send money instantly, pay your bills in seconds, shop without borders, pay your rides, order your meal, buy your ticket, deposit and withdraw money for absolutely free. No extra charges, no hidden fees, only on Zap Super App. This is not just convenience. This is confidence. This is the future in your hands. And the best part, Zap is born right here. Built for us, designed for every Gambian home, every Gambian dream. So don't wait in the past. Step into the future. Download Zap today on App Store and Play Store and enjoy endless free services. Call us today on our toll-free number 1666 or on 260-0001. Zap, all in one, all for you. Tap in, zap in.
On Monday, the 16th of February 2026, we're with Talib Ahmed Bensouda, Mayor of Kanifing Municipality, where I live, where West Coast Radio is doing business out of. And yeah, he's here to talk to us about his Unite movement for change. Never say united, movement for change. How does the UMC differ in culture and vision from the other parties? And let's just limit that to the two main ones, because you now identified yourself as the third alternative. So how do you differ from the UDP, which you once belonged to, and the NPP, which you're trying to bring down from high office?
So generally, I believe one is that we have the luxury of building from scratch. So
NPP had that as well, didn't they?
Well, I mean now we have the luxury of NPP had that opportunity, but NPP, I believe, was just trying to win the 2021 election. So NPP was...
Is that not what you're trying to do as well in 2026?
Not really.
You're not trying to win in 2026?
We will participate, but we are not building just to participate in 2026.
So if you lose in 2026, you'll not be disappointed?
I always say, in the same breath, if we lose, which I hope not, is in the same breath we'll say, let's get ready for parliamentary and local government. Okay, we'll concede and say, well, if we lost on fair grounds, we'll say we'll concede, but then we are participating in. Okay. Let's get ready. Okay. So we have the luxury of building from scratch. We also have the luxury of time. We are not in a hurry. Because like I said, we are not gunning for one election. We are building responsibly. We are learning from mistakes of other parties.
Which was not the case in the case of NPP.
Certainly.
Because in the lead up to 2021, we started hearing, oh no, it's like our life is staked on this and all of that. So such language will never come from the UMC.
No.
It's not a do or die.
No, it's not a do or die life or death for a party. I mean, it can be a do or die for a country. That's what you should say. You should say, this is do or die for Gambia. This is life or death for Gambia. Not for your party. I mean, your party is a player trying to make a difference. So that's why I said, for our party, it's not a do or die. For our party, it's not a life or death. For the Gambia's prosperity, it could be do or die or life or death, given the trajectory. However, like I said, we are building responsibly. Things like, for example, in our constitution, we're trying to ensure that separation of power is institutionalized. Instead of one person being the alpha and omega, we are trying to have three different leaders responsible for different things. So the party leader is the figurehead is the leader of the party, is the face of the party. And then you have the Secretary General, who's the administrative head of the party, runs the party. And then you have the chairman of the party, who's basically the whip, the responsible for ensuring people adhere to policies and, you know, the values and principles of the party, and chairs party meetings. So these are the three individuals basically in charge. No one really has dominance over the other. Of course, the party leader has an edge as the leader, but they're responsible for three different, you know, organs of the party. When it comes actually to the flag bearership, which anybody could apply for, the only person not allowed to apply for it is the Secretary General, unless they resign as Secretary General, because they have an unfair advantage. They run the elections, right? So basically, this is something we have learned being members of other parties, as some of the reasons parties are personalized, you know, and parties are not institutionalized and can't live beyond the leader. And this is a problem that's existed since President Jawara's days. You know, no leader can step down because they fear collapse of their party, or people don't believe there's somebody else who's able to take on the party. So we are truly and meaningfully trying to change that through an institutionalized manner, through our constitution. So we also want to develop that culture, you know, within the party, and we want participation of our supporters.
That's a fundamental difference.
It's a
whereas in the other political parties, the Secretary General is seen as the natural flag bearer. You're saying in the UMC arrangement, the Secretary General actually cannot be flag bearer.
No, they have to resign.
Okay.
Yes. If they resign and say, I wish to be flag bearer, fine, then we can bring in an interim Secretary General and they can compete. You know, so this is a fundamental difference. You know, so there's other differences.
And where else does this kind of system work? Where did you?
So I've seen this in Liberia. In Monrovia. You know, I visited.
So you see, this is African.
It's African.
So it's not like, oh no, he's bringing Western ideas.
I've seen it in Liberia. I've seen it in Sierra Leone with the APC. You know, it's not exactly the same. Okay. But with the APC, the Secretary General is different from the head of state. You know, because I met the Secretary General of the APC when I visited Mayor Yvonne. In Liberia, when I visited Koji Jefferson, when he was mayor of Monrovia, he introduced me to his Secretary General. I'm like, but he's not the president. Where's the president? He's like, no, our Secretary General is different from the head of state. You know, so these are clear checks and balances between running the party and running the state. So if you remember, one of the laws we had in the parliament is that if you were expelled from your party, you would lose your seat. And this is a way the president, who's supposed to be an arm, running an arm of government, and parliament supposed to exercise oversight, would control parliament.
Absolutely.
If he had majority in parliament, he would tell his parliamentarians, fall in line, or I expel you from my party, or cancel, and then you would have to go for by-election. And most likely you would lose.
But that was changed, of course.
Well, it was changed in 2017.
Yes, of course. So 2017, that is why they can crisscross.
Right.
That is why 8 of your people, I'm saying 8 of Talib and UDP, then could go and help Adama Barrow, start the NPP and have representation.
Right. So you see, these laws are not perfect. So I think many felt that gave party leaders power over or the president power over their parliamentarians. I'm not sure what was the spirit behind amending that law, but certainly I think what's more fundamental is how parties are formed and governed. Because I always say parties become government. So the same rules and principles should apply. Same checks and balances you wish to see in government should apply in your party constitution.
You've spoken of a reset in Gambian political culture. What does that reset look like in practice?
So in practice, I think it means many things. I mean, if you look at the way politics is done in the Gambia, it goes against, what it means to be Gambian.
Really?
Yeah. So if you look at Gambia as
that for me, I'm confused.
So Gambia is the smallest country in mainland Africa.
True.
Smallest. 2.5 million people, some say 3 million, is definitely the smallest. You look at the culture and the history of even when, Banjulians were there. I'm sure I was young or not born, but it's a tight-knit community. It's a community of mutual respect. It's a community of togetherness and helping each other. As diverse as we are, both in religion and in tribe, those things took a backseat.
Absolutely.
And there was a cordial relationship, even when people saw things differently. Now, it come fast forward today, our politics. Insults, tribalism, factionalism, personality cults, no discipline. People can go online, insult each other or their people's parents. People can come on the radio and, have vile comments against opponents. And children are hearing, the population is hearing. So I think a reset is needed, where we need to dig and go back to the roots of what it means to be Gambian. Even slogans like the Smiling Coast, known as friendly people, accommodative people, cordial people, So the politics is very different from that. So I'd say when I say we need a reset, it's the manner in which we do politics. We are not talking about how to fix the problems of the woman in the garden or the youth who intends to go back way or the carpenter who can't get business. Nobody's talking about that. Everybody's talking about each other. So that's why I said when I say we need a reset, it's a reset in the culture and issue-based politics. People should be competing on ideas. I mean, when I come and sit with you, we should argue on a policy direction, on monetary policy or child rights or something that moves this country forward. But today, tune in the radio or go on the internet. It's all about personality. He's a bad guy, he's a thief, he's corrupt, he's that and that. Nothing about how to truly move this country forward. So when I criticize the government, I always focus on issues. Whether it's governance, whether it's the constitution, whether it's the lack of reforms, but never to Adam Barrow's personality or any minister. I've never said anything about a minister's personality or the president. And this is the standard we are trying to set. This is the bar we are trying to raise.
What do they say about you when they choose to criticize you?
To be honest, unless somebody comes and tells me, I don't listen. One of the.
It's not safe. You have to know what the opposition is saying about.
Like I said,
in order to counter the narrative.
Well, you see, I don't bother that much on countering narratives on personal attacks.
People say nasty things about you, and you don't know how to.
All the time. Well, I can only allow the population to judge. Sometimes silence is the best response. I am confident of who I am. My conscience is clear. What I believe in, if I keep hammering my message on how to fix this country, the voter decides. The guy talking about the other guy or the guy talking about my problems. I think what voters care about is what are you going to do about my problems or my community's problems or this country's problems. Nobody is in politics to listen to what you have to say about your opponent.
So speaking of this country's problems, what would you say are the country's main problems right now?
Several, too many.
Yeah.
But
let's pick out three for you. If you were to prioritize, three problems, to point out that these are problems that need attention right away. We should start tackling them. What three problems?
Definitely high on everybody's agenda is cost of living. Second and high on everybody's agenda is economic opportunities, youth employment. Third, of course, always is healthcare.
Okay. Yeah. On all three, they could say a lot has been done already. The price of rice has come down. We're told the price of cement definitely has come down. There was a time it was, the talk of the town. And the price of sugar, they say, has come down.
Right. So basically, what the interesting thing, especially let's go to the cement, this was an artificial rise. It was not even supposed to happen, because it was not based on global prices. It was based on monopolistic practices. You look at the other areas, these are global shocks. They are not because of local policies. You know, so I mean, if you can point to, in economics, there's something they call the basket of goods. You know, that's inflation, on inflation. If the minister came and said, okay, on the basket of goods, on inflation, this is the actual figure, this is the actual percent, I think that's what they should focus on. Instead of nitpicking few items.
Inflation has come down, you would concede.
Well, marginally. But like I said, if you look at the trend over the past 10 years, it's been very bad. Gambia is a small economy. We're import-based economy. Of course, we're very vulnerable to these kinds of global shocks, etc. That's why there should be a very, very serious focus on, you know, monetary policy and how to control inflation. I am saying right now, when you go to the average household, this is the #1 concern. How do we control inflation? Okay. How do we ensure productivity, economic growth, and there's a rise in incomes? You know, how do we ensure that our youth are employed and are not seeking better opportunities to Europe? So these are the concerns every opposition figure right now, including government, should be trying to figure out and tackle. Okay. And it should not be based on global shocks. It should be based on internal government policy. It should be based on what the central bank is doing, what the Ministry of Finance is doing. So basically, we are building our manifesto, which we will do a grand unveiling. You'll be invited, about the exact measures we will do to ensure that Gambians have a high disposable income and feel like they're having a quality of life.
Just continuing on the issue of youth employment or youth unemployment, whichever, and creating opportunities, they would point to the government's TVET strategy and insist that, you know, we can only, you know, create the opportunities, and it's up to the young people of the Gambia, you know, to take advantage of those opportunities. We need mechanics. We need masons. We need other skilled workers. Our young people apparently don't want to go, you know, into those areas. So they want to leave the country, go to Europe, all right, where they would, if they have opportunities in these very areas again, they'll be happy to serve in. And so that leaves us open to, you know, other youths from other countries flooding in and occupying this.
So see, these are some of the things, you know, that the youth should take very personally. I mean, how can you call your country's youths lazy or not wanting to work?
I didn't use the word lazy.
No, I mean, I'm not saying you. You're saying the government says we are creating opportunities, but the youths are refusing
to. But there are TVET centers all over the place. I'm sure you know that.
Yeah, I know that, but remember.
And they were created for young Gambians
when you look at labor economics, demand must meet supply. I mean, you wouldn't take any job. I mean, I wouldn't go to UTG and graduate and get paid $2,000 a year.
The first reason for wanting to go to UTG is to get enough, you know, skills, education, ability, and all of that to now go and be picky and choosy about jobs. So
no, it's not picky and choosy. So let them go. So like I said, in labor economics, your wage must match, you know, your skill.
Okay, it's a question of wages in those ways.
Well, of course, you know, you can't graduate or the cost of living cannot be a certain standard and then you go and get a job that pays below that cost of living, or you go get that job using your time that is below your skill level.
So we are still not paying living wages.
We are not paying living wages. So the real challenge is lack of economic growth, lack of good paying jobs, you know, people being gainfully employed. It's not just about being employed, it's being gainfully employed. So government should look at, okay, there's a skills shortage or there's a labor shortage. How do we ensure that, you know, that labor shortage is filled? And one of the things is, how do we raise wages? Some governments do it through social interventions like minimum wages. Some other countries do it through how do we attract FDI and ensure that, you know, there's better paying jobs or higher skilled jobs that are created in our local economy. Because if you just say, oh, we're creating jobs, people refuse to take that jobs. Let me give you an example of a young guy who visited me from Fas Njaga Saho. He basically
said... Oh, there's Fas Njaga Saho? I know Fas Njaga Choi.
Fas Njaga Choi, sorry. Okay. So he basically said, you know, Talib, one of the big problems we have is that if you tell me to go be a farmer, and I look at a farmer, and I see that the farmer cannot afford school fees for their children, and I see that the farmer has torn clothes, does not have a vehicle, cannot build a house, what would motivate me to want to go be a farmer? when the current farmers are suffering. If you tell me, go be a carpenter, there's carpentry, and I see carpenters cannot afford a quality life, what would motivate a young person to want to go do that job?
Zero. And on the third strand, which is, the health thing, oh no, they are always saying you only need to go to Edward Francis Small Teaching Hospital and see, how they have transformed the structure. And of course, a minister has sat here and said that, all these things about medicines not being available in our hospitals and health centers are all made up.
Well, look, I'm not going to sit here and criticize government for no reason. We've seen the renovations they were doing at Edward Francis Teaching Hospital. We've seen the marginal improvements in healthcare here and there. But the fact of the matter is, if you have many complications, or sometimes, even basic complications, you have to go to Senegal. I see it every day at my office. Every day people walk in, seeking help to go get treatment in Senegal. I'm sure you have people visiting you.
Sure.
So the fact of the matter is, though there's been marginal improvements, we are very far from where we need to be as far as diagnostic equipment, as far as the ability of medical workers to, cure and treat certain ailments. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done in that area. And I don't think the investment is, this government is very focused on infrastructure and not very focused on substance. What people need is not shining walls. What people need is good machinery, good capacity in the hospitals and highly motivated personnel to deliver on that treatment. If people are still having to go to neighboring African countries, I'm not even talking about Turkey or India, but neighboring African countries to get treatment, I think that's where the problem starts. So there must be a holistic approach to how to ensure that Gambians, especially those who don't have disposable income to care for themselves, to be able to stay here and be cared for. There was one time I saw government working on a health insurance scheme, which I participated in. I was also sharing ideas with the ministry, but we haven't heard.
Isn't it on?
I haven't heard anything about that. I don't think it's on. It's not on.
It's not on.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that would have been a good thing to have. When they started, I was actually, energized. I wrote a long excerpt for the Minister of Local Government based on my experience working in medical insurance about interventions and things I think needed to be done. But, we heard nothing again about it.
Do you think because it comes from you, they wouldn't be interested? Lest you, be going around now
whether
saying,
they took my ideas...
They are working on my ideas.
No, whether they took my ideas on or not, the fact is they did initiate. The fact is they started registering people, but it was never fully implemented. That's the question.
Okay.
But those are the things that could have helped low-income earners to have medical treatment.
So what's the single biggest things Gambians would feel in their daily lives if Talib were to be president after the 2026 elections?
Well, look, I would say let's wait for the manifesto. I wouldn't like to get ahead of my party, but I would love to invite, West Coast Radio, yourself, to an unveiling where we will talk about our intervention areas by priority and the policy interventions we would create.
All right, I'll come definitely for that. And just before I ask you for your final message to the viewers, the listeners, if you had one message to deliver to President Adama Barrow, what would that be this morning?
It's the same. I mean, seal your legacy. Don't run for a third term. Be remembered as the first Gambian president who voluntarily stepped down after 2 terms and allowed for succession in your party. And better yet, you can institutionalize it by amending the constitution and creating the 2-term limit. Even if there's not a total overhaul, just make that amendment. There's been many amendments made in the constitution, but this one, definitely nobody would stop it. He would have cross-party support to get a 2-term limit in the constitution and voluntarily practice it. You would be named, airports would be named after you, bridges would be named after you. You'd be remembered.
He can get
truly.
That done. He can get that done.
Truly, he'd be remembered.
If he wanted Banjul International Airport to be called Adama Barrow International Airport, that would happen.
Well, as soon as he leaves, it would be removed. It's better for other presidents to name it after you, then it would last the test of time. Ghana just renamed their international airport, So it's better to have, other leaders do it, that it would last the test of time. Similarly to what he has done for President Jawara, who's my grandfather, and the family is quite grateful. The convention center is named after him. So that's the best way to do it. And to get it done, basically, you have to do something unprecedented. And this is one of them. Step down voluntarily, institutionalize it through constitutional amendment, and have succession happen within your party.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't know why you choose to come at 9 o'clock on Monday when we'll be doing something at 10 o'clock with somebody else. Right. Because, come on, this is just like scratching the surface of, what would have been.
Well, we'll be back. Like I said, once we unveil our manifesto, we'll be back and we'll be ready to answer every question. Okay. Yeah.
So just final message, to the listener, to the viewer.
First of all, I'm still upset that you didn't invite me to your birthday. But
I'll tell Mom to appease you. All right. So once you're done here, I'll give her a call and say, please, appease Talib for me.
But it's a pleasure to be back. My message is the same. Let's keep our politics civil. Let's keep it issue-based. Let's be respectful. Let's go back to that Gambian culture of accommodation and hospitality. And I thank everybody who has been supporting the UMC, all the participants in the regional congresses, and I congratulate all the newly elected regional leaders.
Fantastic. Talib, thanks for coming.
Thank you.
And that's Talib Ahmed Bensouda, still mayor of Kanifing Municipality and leader of the Unite Movement for Change.
Sant Yàlla. Looy xaar utal Wave nga scan nga fay te nag doo ci yokku dara.
Jah Oil, the company, have filling stations across the country, and our rates are relatively cheaper than anyone else across the country. Jah Oil is the biggest producer and distributor of cement in the country with the most competitive prices in the market.
In the Gambia, we all move to different paces. Time is money, convenience is power, and now both are in your hands. No more long lines, no more late payments, no more missed chances, not anymore. Because now the Gambia has its own super app, Zap. One app, one tap, endless convenience. Send money instantly, pay your bills in seconds, shop without borders, pay your rides, order your meal, buy your ticket, deposit and withdraw money for absolutely free. No extra charges, no hidden fees, only on Zap Super App. This is not just convenience. This is confidence. This is the future in your hands. And the best part, Zap is born right here. Built for us, designed for every Gambian home, every Gambian dream. So don't wait in the past. Step into the future. Download Zap today on App Store and Play Store and enjoy endless free services. Call us today on our toll-free number 1666 or on 260-0001. Zap. All in one. All for you. Tap in. Zap in.